Hello, I'm Malcolm Haslett.
And I'm Janice Baker. How are we going to get around in the future?
Oh, will I have to keep being able to ride a bike?
We'll find out more as we meet our special guest, Gayle Buckby, next on Our Time.
I'm not a good bike rider, I should tell you. I have fallen off on the odd occasion.
Oh dear.
Do you still ride a bike?
Yeah, no. But I actually did enjoy riding when I did ride, but it's more as I get older, it's the fear factor of brakes failing or traffic.
I'm so concerned about that, it's getting my leg over the bar on a boy's bike. It's got to sort of do stretching exercises to...
No, you lay it down and then go up.
Oh, no, I haven't gone that far. However, we're talking about that because of what's happening in transport around the world and the people who plan the roads and the footpaths and things we walk on. And our very special guest in this program is Gayle Buckby, who is the director of InfraPlan and is responsible for creating amazing spaces, I like that, in incorporating, just explain that whole thing, Gayle, and welcome to Our Time.
Oh, well, thank you for that introduction.
I never finished it though. You're responsible for creating
something.
Fabulous spaces for transport.
Okay, let me try and just dissect that. As the population is growing and if people keep going the way they've been going in the past, where everyone has a car each and we drive around, public spaces will just become a massive cars and not very interesting places. So
no trees.
That's right. And when you think about it, a car is really designed for maybe 5 people plus luggage, and yet they're filling up our public spaces with generally one person. Yeah. So it's do we want cities that are just full of big hunks of metal everywhere and often just empty hunks of metal that are parked on the side of the road? Is that the sort of city we want? Mm-hmm. Or do we want a city that's colourful and with people and vibrant and less pollution and...
more trees.
More trees, exactly.
I'm big on the trees.
So we have to think about the future and how we're moving around. And I think, from the 50s when car transport started to grow...
became the norm, I suppose.
It became the norm.
Just expected.
And people love their cars. And if you see an advertisement for a car on TV, there's not someone stuck in a traffic jam.
No.
They're on the open road, freedom.
Yeah.
So we have to start changing the way we think about moving. And I think, with the change of technology, we really have no idea what the future will really hold. But if we take on the responsibility of our environment, we have to rethink about what we're doing.
So do you think the Jetsons will actually come to be and we'll have flying vehicles?
No, I don't actually. I mean, there's a lot of talk at the moment about driverless cars and things, and I don't even think that particularly. We'll have driverless buses and driverless trains and things.
We've already got driverless trains, haven't we, in parts of the world?
Yeah. But if there's driverless cars, there's just going to be cars everywhere still. That doesn't remove all the hunks of metal from them.
So you can either go up or down, I suppose.
Well, there's 2 choices. You could just keep widening the roads and bulldoze all the buildings and create freeways, but that doesn't actually ever solve anything. So we have to use different...
Doesn't make a livable city, does it?
No.
What about the scooters, though, that we're seeing now in the streets? There's more in the
little
city.
Electric ones?
Yes.
What do you think about them?
Well, I think it's fantastic, to be honest.
Particularly when you trip over them because people don't stand them up.
Oh, no.
What's good about the scooters is that they're great for the last mile. So you can catch a bus somewhere and then just hop on a scooter and go for that last bit of your trip. Yeah. And so that's where I'd like to see the future coming, where it's not just one. You don't just think you jump in your car as your first choice. You think about, okay, where am I going? I can walk to the train stop. I can catch a train to there, and then I can grab a scooter and go there. And so there's just more, it's seamless mobility and it's transport choice, and it's just thinking about it.
Well, we were in a recent program where we were talking about seniors cards and the fact that we're both using a seniors card to hop on a tram or a bus because it's so much easier than trying to find a park in the city if you've got to go into the city. But before we get into that area, what's the award you've just won?
Oh, well...
Because you're a bit special.
well, not just me, there was a team of us who worked on a project, but we won the National Award for Excellence in Transport Planning, and that's an award by the AITPM, which is the Australian Institute of Transport Management and Planning.
Well
Not
done.
that you really need to know
that.
But it was real kudos to win this particular project because it was a small community project. And interestingly, you were speaking about ageing because this project was funded by the Office for Ageing Well, SA Health, and also the City of Norwood, Payneham and St Peters. And it was about creating little walking routes for people that are older, and because for health and independence and social connectedness, people need to be able to get out of the house.
Yeah.
And if they're unable to drive or for whatever reason, whether it's through cognitive issues or just mobility issues, to be able to get out of the house and walk somewhere and
to be safe.
And to be safe, yes. To know where you're going, to be safe, and
I guess
really
something
important.
visual at the same time, because otherwise you're just walking. I walk a bit and I walk the same street all the time because it's where I
Handy.
live.
We have the
You get
in
sick of
South Australia though, and as you said around St Peters, there's the linear track,
Yes.
which is just beautiful. I've walked my
Yes.
dog along that. And
That's right.
People cycle along
And that was one of the destinations that we made in this little walking route in the pilot project. We created little networks that ended up at Linear Park as a destination where there was a picnic table and a toilet and a playground.
Gee, that's something you don't
grandchildren.
think of, isn't it? Really, a toilet, and how
Exactly.
valuable that is in a public space.
Exactly.
as you're
And the
getting
need for
older.
it.
As you're getting older.
Well, I don't think it matters what age you are. You've been
No.
out with any kids lately?
No, that's true.
In toilets all the time. So you've had more or less two careers because you've had a music career as well. And I love we'll talk more about that in a tick, but I love the fact that you play piano accordion. Were you a little girl when you started, or where did the love come from?
I came to it late. I was about 18, I suppose, when I
okay.
picked it up. I'd been travelling in Eastern Europe and just fell in love with the buskers in the squares playing the accordion. Just such
Portable
a
music.
plaintive instrument. You can just
Absolutely.
play one note and it creates tears.
Yes.
Well, either happy tears or sad tears,
Yeah.
depending on how you play.
It is.
Whether
It's
you're
a
pushing
lovely,
or pulling, I suppose.
it's a lovely sound.
Did you find that difficult, sort of working this and this? It's a bit like doing that, isn't it?
It is like that. But those bass buttons on the left are just really cleverly designed that once you get the patterns, it's easy. Well, not easy.
So do you play with a group or is it just by yourself?
No, I have played up until recently in a band called the Baker Suite, and we played for...
I'm Janice Baker.
Yes, that's
Baker
right. Well, my husband was John Baker, and I was the sweet part, apparently.
Oh.
No, it was SUIT. But yeah, we played for about 17 years actually, and before that I was in an all-girl country band called Problem Pony.
I love that.
So you've had this interesting career
Yeah.
with performing and music, and this other side, so-called day job, I guess. Did the music? This is a stupid thing to ask, I guess, but did the music help you with being able to sort of sort out patterns and things? Because music really is a pattern in itself.
Yeah, that's a very interesting question, and I think I always tried to separate them actually, because I come from a civil engineering background, which is what I studied. You know, that was a very technical, regimented kind of career, but I didn't feel like that was the essence of me. So I needed a passion to balance that, and so music and visual art is the other thing that I do to just. Yeah, and so I've always separated them. I've almost worn totally different clothes depending on what I was doing. So.
Oh, I get that.
Yeah.
No, I don't know.
We're the same. I
Absolutely.
wear bathers most of the time.
God.
In fact, I dress to match your hair. So something that Gayle pointed out before. See, very observant eye. So just getting back to the transport situation, because cities are becoming so congested, as you said, with transport, it seems we went through a time period where everybody bought that super big vehicle for a family, and quite often you only see one person. I noticed that, so when I was looking for a new car, I bought the smallest car I could find.
Yes.
Well done. Very good.
And it was for that reason. But the reason that I bought it was because I was on a trip overseas. I was in Europe. One of them nearly knocked me over in Mykonos, and then I saw in London a whole stack of them.
On top of the other?
On top of the other, at actually where Shakespeare's Globe is or was. And I thought at the time, that's what I should get. I used to drive a big, long, sporty car. And the fuel economy, the space in the car itself, I've found, although it's only a two-person car, I've found you can fit so much in that little car. In fact, we always drive out together to do the programs. And it's just a great little car to have. Is the size of the car the future? And we'll find out what the answer to that is after this break. To answer this and many more questions, will we need to go to smaller cars? What's the answer, special guest?
Well, I think if you generally just drive around by yourself and you do need a car, having a small car makes sense. And if on occasional weekends you need to go out on longer trips with the family or whatever,
leave half from home.
There are other. There are other options. Car share is a bigger thing that's happening. It's not, there's a few in Adelaide, but it's very big in the eastern states where. Well,
this program goes all over the country, so people will be listening to this at interest.
Yeah, so you pay a yearly membership fee, and then there's a car down the end of the street that you can use when you want to.
If you need a bigger vehicle.
That's right. And so in Europe, that's very, very big. And the share cars, there's vans, there's utes, there's moving trucks.
It's fantastic.
And there's bicycles, scooters, everything.
Well, I think in the 10 years I've had my little car, I've only needed once or twice a bigger vehicle. Or I simply say, no, it's only a two-seater car, you'll have to walk. Find another way.
I guess also, we could compare ourselves to a place like Amsterdam and how, I've never been, I'd love to go, and how many bicycles there are there, or it seems to be, and it's a beautiful city.
Well, I've just returned from a study tour in the Netherlands, a transport innovation study tour. And yes, we went to the biggest bicycle park in the world, which had spaces for 12,000 bicycles at the train station.
At the train station?
Yep, and it was really hard to find a spare space, actually.
That's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Although I must say, here in South Australia and driving, I see the bike lanes and I never see a bike. Is that something people say a lot?
They can say that, yes. And
I just did.
But often, I think the difference between Amsterdam and a lot of Australia, for instance, is that we just paint a little white line on the road and expect people to ride it. And confident cyclists will do that, but a lot of people won't do that because they're too nervous to do it, and particularly women, in actual fact.
Yeah.
Is it because we've grown up with the culture of just zooming along and not being aware of what's around us? Yeah,
that's true. I think so. And also in cities where they ride a lot, every driver is also a cyclist, so they're aware of what it's like.
That's true.
Whereas here it's very cyclist versus motorist in a lot of senses.
Yes, it is. It's quite confrontational. You see things like letters to the editor in the newspaper, and you sort of think, oh, you can tell that person clearly is one or the other because they're complaining about signals or coming too close or not being aware of the car that's beside you or whatever.
And there might be a rogue cyclist that does something wrong, and then a motorist will just remember that one rogue cyclist.
Yes, it spoils it for everyone.
But there's a lot of rogue motorists as well.
Yes, there are.
So in your planning, this is obviously all government generated, I would imagine, or local council?
but local council, state government, and developers as well. And I do general traffic engineering as well, like, you know, car parks and little things. It's not always great planning strategies.
Do you feel like it's your baby when you finally get a chance to see it?
It's great.
Finished?
I know. You're going to go around a roundabout. That's one of my roundabouts. And I did that bike path. Yeah, it's very exciting.
So how does it happen? How does the design come to you?
Well, it's often a tendered project. So it will be on the internet that, for instance, a local government area might want a bicycle strategy, and several consultancies in the state will write a tender saying how they'll do it and what they'll charge, and the council chooses the best person for the job.
Is that frustrating if yours doesn't get up?
Oh, of course, yeah, but you can't win every job.
You can't, but you would obviously put a lot of man hours into.
Yeah.
Was that the right, now see, we're all suddenly very conscious. Is that the right number of person hours? Is that the right number of human hours? The right number?
Hours, yeah. Yeah, that's right. And so you're always trying to put in the best methodology and the cheapest fee to try and get the job.
So going overseas and seeing what people are doing, say, in the European countries, is that helpful? Because the Americans are about building massive freeways pretty much, aren't they? It would appear. Yes,
they are, although some cities are changing. You know, Portland is a good example. There's lots of cities that... the thing is, in the past, in Australia and America, most of the funding has gone towards roads, and then the little bit that's left is for everything else. Whereas in a lot of other cities in Europe, for instance, big amounts of funding go towards cycling and walking.
E-bikes are becoming very popular too.
Absolutely, they're fantastic.
Well, they are. I tried it myself.
How'd you go?
Well, it still hurt. I thought I'd just sit and, occasionally pedal, but you still have to work at it. It was a bit of a shock.
And see, this is another reason why active transport is a good thing, because it keeps you fitter for longer. And you were saying you can't quite cock your leg over a boy's bike, but had you been always riding since you were a kid...
No, that's absolutely true. That is absolutely true. The bike was in the shed and I kept thinking, I must get that out. I got it out and cleaned it, pumped up the tyres, and I thought, oh, this isn't as easy as it used to be. But then what is?
Yeah, true. And also the little cars that you can actually, a battery.
Yeah, the electric cars.
The electric cars are
Well, there's a big thing.
So,
what's the planning for them? Because obviously there's going to need the plug-in points.
Outlets.
Yes.
Yeah, well, that's all being rolled out slowly or not
so
slowly.
Are you looking at that within the design as an add-on in the future?
We're always taking that into account now. We've just done a particular project where we've installed a couple of electric car parking bays as part of the overall project.
Yeah.
See, the public don't always, they're not sort of aware of these things. You hear, a plan is up for discussion, and then there's a big discussion by people that probably don't know a great deal about the future or haven't travelled and seen those other opportunities. What advice would you give people when they hear about something is changing? Do they need to have a voice in it, or is it really trust the people that actually know what they're doing?
No, I think it's really good for people to vent their concerns and talk about the issues, but then I think people need an open mind about change. I think people are afraid of change often, and there's a fear. It comes from a fear of, I won't be able to get to my destination.
How am I going to cope with that?
And buses are boring, and you have to sit next to smelly people. Or there's a lot of negative biases, and so there's a lot of education that really does need to be done, but people need to be open to listen to that education.
But how can you get that education out there? Is this something that you have to worry about as part of this planning, or is that up to the people that have contracted you to do that?
It's often part of a project, but not often enough, I find. Sometimes, for instance, I hear that people that lose their licence through DUI or losing demerit points have to catch a bus for 6 months, and then they end up loving it And because all of a sudden I can read books and listen to the music while I'm going somewhere, and it's door to door, and it's cheaper, and all of these fantastic things that they never would have known unless they tried it.
That's a very interesting point, cheaper, because we think of paying a fare or getting a weekly ticket or a monthly or whatever ticket, but we don't equate that to how much petrol we would use, the amortisation of the cost of the car, the servicing and all of those things. I've thought that through. It's just, I suppose, in our business it's difficult to get public transport because of the time that we work and so on. It's in performance, show business. Did you find that with... I mean, carrying around your instrument, you didn't need a truck like a piano player, did you?
Yeah, I needed a car for the accordion to carry that around. But that's something that's happening in the future too, where it's mobility as a service, where you might just have one card and it'll be like, how can I describe it? It will have, you'll pay a certain amount per month, and with that card you can get on a bus, you can hire a scooter, you can rent a car, you can catch a train. All of the mobility options.
What a good idea.
So you can choose whether you don't need a car much, so you're only paying $20 a month, or you might rent a car every weekend and you're paying $200 a month. So this is a part of it.
So we're lucky here in South Australia. I don't think we've got any toll roads here.
We haven't.
But in some of the states, obviously, particularly Victoria, there are. Is that something that we all need to look forward to as roads grow? The need for... as we've got here in South Australia, the North-West or South Corridor or whatever it's called, and now we're going to dig up another section or knock down buildings as the conversation is going.
Gee, you're opening a can of worms now, aren't you?
I didn't think I was. Keep your feet off the floor. No, but you know, you look at, if you're travelling, you look at other cities with similar issues where buildings are built to a roadway that pre-existed, and now that roadway just can't handle the traffic.
I don't think congestion can ever be solved. As soon as you build a road, the cars will come, no matter. It's like they say that a road is like a gas. It's not a liquid that flows, it's a gas that fills up. So if you don't build a bigger road, there's going to have to be an alternative.
And we'll be back to talk about that option in just a minute. We're just talking about ulterior...
busy roads.
Yes,
what do we do?
ulterior ways of getting over these problems of roads that have been built up to, and now they're not big enough, wide enough, I was going to say deep enough, but is that the answer, deep, putting roadways underground?
Well, sorry to interrupt there, but we put the O-Bahn underground, didn't we, with the buses?
We did.
mean, that came from, was that from Germany?
The O-Bahn. Yeah, why haven't we got more O-Bahns?
I don't know.
That would, you know...
that would make a bit more sense.
Oh, wow.
Bring back the tube that London's got, I love that. Or the MRT or whatever.
I mean, you know, it's a crystal ball to see what the future, but if you think about it sensibly, mass transit is the way to go. If you've got one train with 100 people on it, that's a whole lot better than 100 cars. And if it's underground, I guess that means you can have trees on the top. But I guess if you've got shops and retail and commercial, they'd want it to be above ground so that people will get off and spend money in their shops. Yeah. So it's land use and transport are tightly integrated, and that's why dense cities are really a good way of planning, so that people don't live a million miles away and they don't have to travel very far, and there are buses and trains.
But in London too, a few years ago, they stopped a lot of traffic going into London, didn't they?
Yeah.
So maybe that's what we can do in our cities, is actually there'll be a stop where you can't actually, you have to leave your car somewhere and get in some other way.
I think you should be a transport planner, because that's
No, I think you should continue, because I know you've got great ideas for the future. Gayle, it's been lovely talking with you. Thank you so much for spending this time with us. And good luck with the piano accordion in the future.
Can you come back next time and bring your accordion?
Sure, I'd love to.
Janice can sing a French song. That would be lovely.
All right.
So thank you so much, and good luck and great success in the future.
Thanks for having me. Good night.
And thank you for being part of our time this time.
Yes, take care.
Until next time, keep yourself nice till then. Bye.